Marketer of the Day, episode 548. Get more momentum, increase your revenue, and grow your business through delegating with Audrey Isbell.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We're talking right now with Audrey Isbell from AVA Power Up, and today we're going to talk about getting a virtual assistant, why you need one, just basically getting you on the converted train to getting that virtual assistant. So Audrey is the founder of AVA Virtual Assistance LLC, and she's the author of 100 Simple Truths All Virtual Assistants Should Know. So we're going to find out what this virtual assistant thing is all about. So Audrey, glad to be talking to you.
Great. Yeah, I'm glad to be here as well. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So, I guess first right off the bat, who should really be listening to our conversation today? Are you looking for people who are in need of virtual assistants, people who are looking to become virtual assistants? I guess, who are we helping out right now?
Sure. All of the above. If you own a small business or a large business even, you can really leverage virtual assistants to really help you grow and, just build more revenue. There's so many ways to leverage the power of virtual assistants. And likewise, for anybody out there who wants to, take a different path and do something different, virtual assistance is an amazing industry to be in. And it's a lot of hard work, but it's so rewarding. It is so good. And there's plenty of work out there. So if you are inclined to be a virtual assistant, yes, please come on in. We have room.
All right. Well, awesome. Well, I definitely want to visit that side of things because I find that really interesting. And I think that I don't think I've heard anyone kind of teach that or be looking for that side of the hiring things. But as far as, building a team and outsourcing more, this is a problem that I didn't know I had until maybe a year or so ago. And I think that I feel like I'm not alone in that a lot of entrepreneurs out there, we think that we can do everything and we'll just find time in the day to get it all done, and to heck with, spending too much of the money in the business. I want to keep all the money and all that. And I don't know, I kind of came to a turning point maybe 6 or 9 months ago when I realized that, oh yeah, I'm running out of time in the day again and again. And there are a lot of things on the list that I would like to do. Sometimes I feel like I'm getting burned out on this or that. And so I'm slowly coming around, and I've been getting better at delegating things that I could do, but it's better to free up that time and do some better revenue generating tasks. So to sort of help me, get better at this delegating thing and then help some other people see the light, do you have some words of wisdom here as far as getting our heads straight, or just helping us, just being better at delegating and having these virtual assistants?
Oh, yeah, that is a deep, bottomless pit of information, and happy to share. The one thing that I think is a big misconception, though, is that the minute that you get a virtual assistant, that you are going to be freed up. And the reality is that we're creators. We keep moving forward. We keep thinking of new things. And, if you're on your own and you don't have a team, you don't have support behind you, then you're going to have a list of things that you've backburnered. But then let's say that you add a virtual assistant or a team of virtual assistants, or maybe you brought on some employees. However you're receiving help, the fact of the matter is that you're going to keep dreaming up new things. And even though you're handing off tasks and different work to your team now, you're going to keep dreaming up those different things. And so guess what? You're going to continue to not just fill their plate, but fill your own again as well, and you will never probably be without a list of backburnered items. And it's kind of a sad thing to say, but now let's kind of rewind and talk about, well, what do you want your impact to be? Do you want your impact to be that of one person trying to do what one person can do, or do you want your impact to be bigger than that? Do you want to be able to have room to continue to grow and to continue to add, new elements to your business, pull in ideas and start, really putting new revenue generating things into your world that you couldn't have done before because you are only one person. So it's really just a matter of, what do you want to accomplish, and realizing that you can accomplish more with a team. You can accomplish far more with a team.
Okay, great. So it sounds to me like what you're saying here is that if and when we hire people on our team, virtual assistants, employees, things like that, it's not like we'll be able to just kick back and do nothing, but what that team gives us is that we can move faster and we can grow bigger in our business, basically have more possibilities, more opportunities.
Exactly. And I would emphasize the more possibilities, more opportunities, sure. And certainly, as leaders in our own companies, it is up to us to really plan out and understand how we want to grow, how we want to impact the world around us, and what legacies we want to leave behind. There's so many facets to this conversation, but in my opinion, I really truly believe that we can create opportunities for ourselves. And that if you're passionate about something, let's find a way to do that something and not feel as if we have our hands tied. Often if we're overloaded or we can't get to that next thing, we're kind of stifling our own creativity. And it's really important for growth and for essentially accomplishing the goals that we set out to accomplish, to be able to have and leverage some freedom of movement within our own plan. And we can't move freely if we're kind of bogged down in the day-to-day minutia of the things that absolutely have to get done versus the creative part of what we do.
Yeah, I can relate to that in quite a number of ways. And what that makes me think of is that a few years ago, I was really rocking and rolling with creating a lot of software, a lot of plugins. I'm a computer programmer, so that's what I really like to do. Somehow it calms me down. I'm good at it and makes a lot of money. And then what made me realize how, I guess, bogged down I was that I found myself doing a lot of editing, like the podcast episodes, like we're on right now doing this interview here. And it used to be after this sort of interview was done, I'd spend the next, 10, 20 minutes just editing that one podcast episode. And I thought at first that, it was okay. I'm just figuring it out. I'm just going to be putting in 10, 20 minutes here and there. But then after a while, I realized that I didn't have any time left, or if I had the time, I just didn't have the energy, or I just didn't feel like doing the things that I was really good at, that was fun, that also made money, which was the programming stuff. And I realized, I need to delegate, and I have now the podcast editing, even though technically I could do it, and technically I could find the time to do it, but I definitely found myself getting overloaded and almost creating a job for myself, doing these tasks that I didn't really like to do, that didn't really make some money. And I guess what took me a while to get over was the problem of saying, there's this thing that doesn't really make me a lot of money, which is like this podcast. It's good to have because the joint ventures, the traffic, it's definitely an essential part of my business, but it's one of those things where I don't see money from it right away, right? Like things like, writing blog posts. People sometimes write blog posts, don't see that immediate money as opposed to like selling a product. So I had that mental block of saying, this thing that's not making me money, now I need to go and pay someone to do it for me, even though it's not making money. So is that a common, I guess, like mental hurdle to overcome when it comes to outsourcing?
Absolutely. I mean, we are often thinking about, why would I pay somebody to do something that I can do? The problem with that is, and we'll just use your podcast as an example, is that if you are, let's say you get done with an interview and you've had this amazing epiphany, just in talking with somebody, having that meeting, and your creative juices are flowing, you could probably sit down and write a book. You are just, really in that zone. But now the problem is that you have, the tasks that come after recording. And if you get pulled back into that, if you get stuck back into that, then not only are you doing something that potentially is not revenue generating, but you're also doing something that is stifling your creativity and growth mechanism. And, again, in my opinion, I really feel like we're people capable of such amazing things when we're able to just create and move forward. And while some of the tasks that we have or that we delegate to our team are important tasks, they're not necessarily something we have to do. Somebody has to do them for sure. And there is, a balance to all of it. But I really feel that entrepreneurs, small business owners, even on up to Fortune 500 companies, they're able to do what they do because they've learned to hand off the menial tasks that stifle creativity, that stifle that process. And I also want to just kind of come back full circle and kind of talk a little bit about how we value things, right? So just because something isn't technically a revenue-generating activity or task doesn't mean it doesn't hold value. And that's what we need to start seeing in the tasks that we hand off. And, as we're working with team members, as we're bringing in new people, to help them understand what an important role they have. Again, going back to the podcast, maybe it's not a huge revenue generator for what you're doing, but it's an integral part because it helps you market other things. And those other things may be the big money makers. And again, you have a specific set of expertise that you can go forward to use that is the money-making, the revenue generation activity. Nobody else can be you. So you definitely need to hand off the tasks that other people can do just as well so that you can do the tasks that are making you money.
That's really helpful. And as you're describing that, what's going through my imagination is that maybe we have tasks that, like you said, they don't directly make money, but they're one or two steps away from the money. They're the things that set the domino effect in motion to, generate the traffic or get someone, on our list to listen to a podcast, and they get on our list and they buy something. And and so it's like you said, even if it doesn't make money immediately from that exact thing, doesn't mean it's not important. And so something else that I did a few months ago was, as far as reaching out to podcast guests, I used to do all this work myself of doing basically data entry and filling up a spreadsheet and making a list of people to contact. And then after a while, I thought to myself, well, I'm an idiot. I'm spending hours and hours of filling up this spreadsheet. And I went and hired someone to go and basically like scrape a couple of other people's podcasts by hand and take these guest names and contact information and just fill up a spreadsheet. And I was surprised at how cheap it was, and I keep getting surprised at how inexpensive a lot of these people are that I'm hiring. Like, it'll be like $60 for something that would have taken me 5 or 10 hours, and is done in a couple days. And so I'm definitely thinking to myself over and over again, geez, I should have done this outsourcing stuff years ago. And I love the way that you explain that, where you might have a really good idea, and if you weren't doing enough outsourcing, then you'd stifle your creativity there. You'd have that good idea, but you'd say, I don't have the time to implement this. And then it just sounds to me like that sets off a bad pattern, right? It's like, if we have a good idea, we should be able to spring into action. But if we keep on having this pattern of, I got this idea, I'm going to do something else, I have this idea, I'm going to ignore it, it seems like that's a path to have the good ideas dry up eventually if we're not implementing them. So do you have, just to, help us get encouraged and things like that, do you have any good success stories from people who maybe when they came to you or when you came to them, they had it all wrong and then they hired a team and now things are super great?
It feels like every single person I've worked with has been that success story. But, again, it's when you look at it's really about the feeling of freedom, right? So you start to hand off the tasks and you're in the zone of feeling like you can do the next thing or do the creative thing that maybe you sprung up in the middle of the night and thought, oh my gosh, I have this really great idea. And you're able to the next morning move on that great idea. And what it is that you're in the moment, inspired to do that thing. And there's nothing preventing you from doing it now because you have people who are willing to take on the things that, that really anybody could do. And might I add, as somebody who has been in programming and all of that, automation is a great thing as well. Virtual assistants, many people, work at their automations because wouldn't you like to be the person that is inspired, but now also has an inspired team member that is freed up? And now you get to work together on that inspired activity because of an automation. How cool is that, right? And it's a very good thing to be able to move forward, have that momentum, and not feel like the day-to-day things aren't getting done. We know how that feels, right? It just bogs us down. It's a feeling of not being successful, which, I really feel like if you're not succeeding, you're learning, right? But, and defining success is a whole nother, probably a whole nother episode. But it's just so empowering to be able to take an idea and run with it and not feel like, oh, I'm just going to put that on my list, my growing list of ideas. And you know what happens when we come back full circle to that list? We maybe aren't as inspired anymore about that thing because we lost energy on it or we lost focus on it. Simply having something in the forefront of your mind and being inspired about it can create a different set of results than if you were to circle back and try to do it at a later date.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's like if you looked at that to-do list and said, well, I had that idea for that book or that app 5 years ago. I haven't done it in 5 years. How is today any different versus if you were a little bit more strategic and you said, I had this idea for a website and I sprung into action and I got it done in a couple of days instead of a couple of months. Now what else can I accomplish?
Right. And that's, also how I feel that having somebody that you can delegate tasks to, the value is not always about being able to, afford that person or not afford that person. The value is really in what did it mean to you to be able to act in the moment on that creative thing that you were feeling so inspired about? What value does that hold to you? Because in so many ways, we know that those moments of inspiration can open doors. They can unlock amazing things in our lives and allow us to meet people we never dreamed we'd be able to meet, do things we never thought we could do. And all of that rolling out simply because you were able to act out of inspiration and not feel that, that terrible feeling of, oh, I can't today, I've got too much going on. And that value, I place a very high value on just being able to do that. And, it's so much, the value is so much more than what you would pay that person, in my opinion. And that's how we grow. That's how we get our businesses to succeed in different ways, not even just revenue, but just, let's say, brand recognition. If that's on your radar, to have better brand recognition or to have, to have rolled out a new purpose to show people that you have a new product or, there's endless possibilities. And it's just so cool to be able to move on those.
Yeah, I agree. And what I'm hearing from our conversation here as like a repeat pattern is that sometimes the ideas need to percolate, whether we're trying to figure out in our heads like how that new product's going to be, or like you said with the branding, sometimes you have to think about things over and over again, and sometimes you just have to clear the mental clutter in order to do that. And so we really need to have people doing more of the day-to-day stuff, putting out the fires, doing the grunt work, so that way we don't have to. And so are there any of like are there like any tasks that are really good to outsource? Because I feel like I get frustrated sometimes looking into things like virtual assistants, because either it's like all this crazy stuff, like people say things like, well, I have someone give me a ride to the airport, or give me a text or a call to remind me of that. And I'm thinking, well, can't Uber do that, or can't my calendar do that, or things like that, and so I get a little discouraged sometimes, because sometimes people, it seems like they go overboard with the list of tasks, or they say, here's this big laundry list of things that you could do, like outsource your customer support, or outsource your website or your graphics. But as far as all the different scenarios you've seen, are there like a top 3 or 4 things that we should all be looking for as far as like these tasks that these VAs should be doing?
Sure, definitely. And, I think the thing to keep in mind is that there are so many services out there for different things, and how we differentiate a virtual assistant from a personal assistant. They are two very different things. A personal assistant might be that person that picks up your dry cleaning, that will drop you off at the airport, that does some of those more in-person and sometimes very intimate tasks, right? Maybe they're delivering, packages or mail from your office to your home and having access to your home. So a personal assistant is a very different thing than a virtual assistant. And so when you think of outsourcing to a virtual assistant, then there's a whole other world there too. There are VAs who are generalists. I don't really like that term, which is why my firm uses specializing in solutions. We do a wide variety of things, everything from bookkeeping tasks and data entry into software like QuickBooks Online, to social media marketing management, website editing, you name it, podcast assistance. And that's a generalist realm that can kind of dabble in a lot of different areas. And it's good to think of them as sort of a back office admin, somebody that you could always go to, in a sense, to say, hey, do you have knowledge of this, that, or the other, and could you help me with? You always want that person to feel included in the business activity that you're doing, enough for them to chime in and say, hey, I think I could take that off your plate, actually. Would you like me to do that? And so there is opportunities in both directions, not just for you to say, hey, I think I might need some help. Can you help me with? But also for the VA to say, I got that. Why are you doing it? And so that's, on the generalist side, you're going to have a lot of questions and volunteering going on, because generalists have a wide variety of skills. Now, there are also specialists in the virtual assistant industry, and specialists can be, very diverse. You have people specializing, helping specifically different industries. So a virtual assistant who helps only authors, VAs who help only doctors, VAs who help only podcast makers, you name it, right? And then you have specialists who specialize specifically in a task. And so this might be a little bit easier for some of you folks out there who are like, gosh, I really just need somebody to manage my social media, right? You might then look at hiring a specialist for social media. And, and that too can get a little bit crazy, because there are marketing firms out there that specialize in social media. they don't call themselves virtual assistants. And so you kind of need to know what you're getting when you hire on a virtual assistant. They're often more the administrator type. They maybe don't have the certifications and college education or whatever it may be to help you in that thing. It doesn't mean that they're not really, really good at it. It just means that they view themselves as an administrative support helper. So there's a lot of defining to do in the industry still.
Yeah, and you're making a lot of sense here, and you're making me aware of all these. I mean, I didn't even know that it was possible to have some of these virtual assistants where they would volunteer new tasks that they could do, or that there were specialized virtual assistants for authors or doctors or podcasters. But it sounds like it's easy to maybe, I don't know, like get overwhelmed with the possibilities, right? Like, do I hire for these tasks, or do I find that person? So does your company help with that, to help find that right fit?
Absolutely. So we have a application form, actually, is what we begin with, and we build out a job description from there. And what it is it's a starting point. You really have to look at it that way, a starting point for what the person thinks that their needs are. And then we build a job description around those needs, but then our firm is specifically set up to incorporate other things as time goes along, because we recognize that just as our business is growing and changing, so is yours. And you may decide that you need something a little bit different a month from now. And our firm really wants to be able to say, hey, we recognize that you're feeling this change, and we're your team all the way. We want to help support you in that, and here's what we can do. And I think that you'll find that kind of mentality in most VAs. And I think it's a beautiful thing. Most VAs they just totally embody the support role. We're not looking to be the one that shines and the one that gets out there, and, ooh, look at me, look at me. No, our job is to say, ooh, look at you. How cool are you? Right on, And that's a really great feeling, because your success is our success.
That makes a lot of sense. That some people, a lot of people, I mean, I guess everyone gets that satisfaction of helping other people out. So there are some people where their personality or their work ethic or whatever just applies in that way of they don't want to hog. They first of all don't want all of the stress of being responsible for everything, and they don't want to hog that spotlight. They feel better about making someone else look good. And so that sort of leads me into, like we were saying, what people need to know if they're interested in being a virtual assistant, right? Like, how do people know if it's something for them? How do they get started with that? I mean, what's sort of the 2 or 3 minute crash course for these wannabe virtual assistants out there?
Yeah, I would definitely say that if you're considering being a virtual assistant, stop and consider whether or not you want to be a virtual assistant in somebody else's VA firm, or if you want to be a business owner, because that's really the question that you're asking yourself. Do you want to begin a business and be an entrepreneur and go through, as you know, the various elements, good points and bad, all the whole bag that comes with being an entrepreneur, because it's hard work, right? And it's a very different lifestyle being an entrepreneur than to be somebody's, beloved employee or VA, contracted VA. So there's very, different feelings around that. And just consider, if you're considering being a VA, consider how you want to be a VA, first of all. And then from there, you can look at your own skill set, and it's sort of like the application, when we're bringing on new clients and trying to understand what they are looking for in a VA. and to help us determine if we're a good fit for that company. Likewise, if you want to be a VA, do that same thing. Figure out what the criteria is, what skill sets you have to offer to bring to the table, and maybe go from there. You might decide that, I have a lot of knowledge that could support and serve a very specific industry, so maybe I will become a specialist VA, but I don't want to be a business owner, so I'm going to find another VA firm that specializes in that. And that might be a way to start. Or maybe you do want to be a business owner. And again, that's all about, going through the business planning stages and, licensing and what have you, and knowing that you're biting that chunk off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they're one is much more of a rabbit hole than the other. It's fun though.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it, and it sounds like it's just another way of basically figuring out your own career, right? Like back in the day, you'd go to school and you'd get a degree, and then you'd say, "Oh, I can start in this sort of job," and figure out your path. And it sounds like now, because of the internet and a lot more people being entrepreneurs, it's like sort of a similar journey, but we have a lot more freedom, which is both good and bad, right? More freedom because we can do whatever we want, but it's bad because it's not necessarily as clearly defined. But what I'm hearing here is that maybe a lot of people out there have like a ton more options now, right? Because maybe they said, well, I want to, work from home, or I want to work anywhere, or I want to travel or set my own hours, or not have to go into an office and deal with annoying coworkers or whatever. But they don't want that headache of being a business owner, so they can have the best of both worlds, or they can maybe, get started quickly by being a virtual assistant for an already established company, and try different things out, figure out what they want to do, and develop these skills sort of on the job training, so to speak. And then later on, if they feel like they outgrow that, then they can, move up the ladder in whatever way they feel like. If they say, well, I'm going to start as a generalist, or try things out and figure out, I'm really good here, or maybe that'll apply later on into their own business. So, I mean, this is all really, really great stuff just to hear about, what just these new, like all these opportunities that, being a virtual assistant and having a virtual assistant kind of opens up for. And I'm sure that a lot of people out there are wondering, well, what's the money situation like here? Because and this is probably a little bit of a loaded question, but like how much should people expect to pay a VA, and how much should someone expect to make a VA, knowing that, I mean, I'm sure it's all over the place, right?
Sure. Yeah. And, there's varying perspectives on that, obviously. I personally am one who am trying to pioneer value pricing in the virtual assistant industry. I do not charge hourly for new incoming clients anymore. I have a few stragglers that are still on hourly, and I keep telling them that one of these days that we will not be offering that anymore. But I am all about value pricing, and that's a whole can of worms, so I'm not even really going to get deep into that. But what I will say is that I, as a business owner who understands the headaches and heartbreaks and, ebb and flows, the goods with the bads of being a business owner, I really value having certainty. And that's what value pricing does, is it allows our clients to have certainty in what they're paying, and so that there's no surprises. Something like hourly rate, it's as if you're, it being charged to be on, you're being charged basically on a meter. And if you pick up the phone and talk to your VA, that meter is running. And I don't love that. I don't love that at all. So value pricing, and it's different for us, when we figure out the cost. It's different from client to client, because as a generalist and serving a variety of industries in a variety of ways, we can't compare one client to another. They have different needs, they're a different, size company, perhaps. The work that they're asking us to do, one company might have extremely technical work that requires, a great attention to detail, and another may be quite the opposite. But yeah, I think to answer the question about cost, you're going to find a competitive market when it comes to hourly. It still doesn't change the fact that the meter is running. So, and then of course you also have international rates and different fees related to foreign versus domestic, etc. So I'm sorry that's not as clear of an answer, I'm sure, as some people out there would like, but it's an answer nonetheless.
Yeah, and I think I get what you're saying in that this results based model is better, because it seems sort of counterproductive to pay someone more if they take longer to do something. I'd rather pay someone more if they deliver better work. So I guess what I'm getting at here is, I'm sure a lot of people out there are resistant to hiring someone because they're afraid that, well, all this money coming in my business is going to go right back out, and they just need to maybe get started to see the light, to sort of get addicted a little bit to delegating. So do you have any words of advice for people like that, who are just afraid to just put the money in because they're worried that it's going to sort of be upside down in that way?
It again kind of boils all the way back down to value. And what do you value? Do you value your time? Because you have a finite amount of it. And if you're stuck editing podcast material when you could be thinking up that next new thing that is a brilliant thing to be bringing out to the world, how do you value your time? And that in itself has everything to do with delegation and being able to not just honor yourself in the respect of, I have a creative mind, I can do more, but also honoring the person that is in the support role to say, hey, I acknowledge your skill and I acknowledge that you can do these things and I appreciate that. And when you get to a point of being able to hand off that, the tasks that you don't feel like you should be doing anymore, it's not that those tasks become unimportant in a sense. It's just that you've spent your time on them. It's time to hand them off, and so that you can do something different, grow perhaps. But yeah, it is about getting started. It's a little bit about letting go, so that you can, there's this really great balance in the world of giving and receiving, and I find that most people can give. If we're just talking about gifts or a helping hand, right? Most people are of the mind to be a giving spirit, a giving soul. Few people have, there are fewer people that can receive just kind of wholeheartedly and feel good about receiving. I think it might be a pride thing that's out there and different stuff, but you do have to kind of bring in a mentality of, I am going to receive more time to do the things that are important to me, right? Yeah. It's kind of a weird way to think about it, but I'm going to receive more time by delegating. I'm going to receive some creativity back because I'm delegating. And I'm going to receive, whatever open doors come from the fact that you are no longer nose to the grindstone over the things that you maybe shouldn't be anymore.
Yeah, that's
yeah, and it's cool too for the assistant because they get to receive, in a different way. They obviously are receiving the work, and any virtual assistant you talk to is grateful to have the work. We appreciate being able to support others and the coolest thing being a virtual assistant, one of the coolest things, is that we're helping others fulfill their purpose in life sometimes. You know, there are a lot of business owners that I know that it isn't about the revenue. They got into their business to change the world, in a sense, to help other individuals, to make it a better place, make people happy. There's a different underlying purpose. It isn't always money. And the coolest thing being a VA is that we get to be a part of their purpose. And that is just, it gives me chills. I love it.
Well, you are blowing my mind here, and you're giving us these new perspectives on these things, that if someone's a VA virtual assistant, it's not necessarily that they're doing it for a paycheck. They might say, well, I enjoy helping someone else out. And I love that mindset of, well, it's not about all this stuff I'm giving, all this, money and employment basically I'm giving to people. It's about the extra time, the extra creativity that I'll be receiving by delegating. So this is really awesome stuff. And I think I mentioned when you and I first met in person, and on this call too, like I was on my way to getting more stuff delegated, and I've done little by little, and it's just I haven't regretted it at all. And
congratulations, Robert. That's awesome.
Well, thank you. And I'm not quite there yet. I'm not quite perfect with all the delegation, but the only thing I regret the most is not doing it sooner. And I look back and I just wonder why I was so, I guess, just set in my ways and not looking at these things as far as, clearing my head to do the more creative stuff. So this is all just a great, I think, wake-up call for a lot of people listening here. And so what are the next steps if someone says either, I'm looking into this path of becoming a virtual assistant, or I love the idea of having a generalist or a specialist help me out in my business, and they say, Audrey sounds like this really amazing person who can help me out to get me where I need to go. Where should they go after listening to our conversation here today?
They can visit our company on the web at avapowerup.com and, just kind of poke around there. I also want to give a shout out to AVA, which is International Virtual Assistance Association. If you're wanting to be a VA, go there. Absolutely go there. And if you are wanting to find a VA, go there. IVA.org, IVAA.org, O-R-G. And it's just, it's such an amazing industry. We support each other and we support our clients. And I don't think you're going to find another industry that has this much love in it. Honestly, it's great. But yeah, please do visit my website, our website. I do have a team, and I could not be where I am doing what I'm doing without them. And I appreciate them greatly. And just to also calm some nerves about delegation. Delegation is messy, but there are tools out there that allow you to do it even more organized and better. So if you're getting discouraged about the whole delegation thing, don't. It's messy for everyone. It's even messy for people like me who have had so much practice at it. So just, make it happen some way, somehow. Get your request out to people and ask for help. That's a big concept. Ask for help. It's okay. It doesn't mean that you're a lesser person because you asked for help.
Well, fantastic. Well, great advice, and we can't do it alone. And I can also relate to some of those maybe initial frustrations or growing pains or having to debug the system when trying to hire someone. And then once I kind of figured out what I was asking for or figured out the template, then that seemed to be the biggest time saver right there. In that the first couple of iterations of, hiring the podcast editor or hiring the data entry person, I'd feel almost at first like, well, I'm spending more time telling them what I want and training them and correcting them than it would be to just do it myself. And maybe that was true at first, but then once I figured out that template, I could just reuse that over and over again. And it seemed like that was where the real leverage was, at least for me. So, I mean, two great resources there, IVAA.org if you're a virtual assistant or you're on path to be. That way, you're not just going at it alone. And then AVAPowerup.com so that you're not going at it alone when it comes to your business. So that way, you're not trying to do it all yourself, because that's basically impossible. Have a team, free up the creativity, free up the time, accomplish more. Great stuff. So everyone needs to go right now. Don't wait. Write it down and open it up in your phone and your browser. AVAPOWERUP.com, AVAPowerup.com. And thanks so much, Audrey, for setting us right and telling us what we need to know about this virtual assistant stuff.
Thank you, Robert. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Please follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/RobertPlank. That's twitter.com/RobertPlank. And while you're adding me, also like Marketer of the Day on Facebook by going to facebook.com